Okay. I don't know that anyone's really going to watch this, but I just wanted to put down some ideas that I had for Battlefield 6. Number one, longer respawn times and farther spawn points. I felt like in the beta, I kept getting killed immediately, or we'd run into the same people that we just killed far too quick. Just everything was happening like a meat grinder, so fast over and over again, with no real need to be tactical, no real need to slow down and play as a team. Just kind of was like everything was happening so fast, everyone wants to click through and spawn again and not allow the medic to heal them, because you're going to get back into the fight immediately anyway, so why wait for that? Number two, the medic and support are not the same thing, so I don't like that there is one basket for both support, resupply, as well as medic heal. I don't think that your health should automatically regenerate. I know Halo started that a long time ago. I think it's been kind of a downside to FPS games since that happened. That's great for Halo, but I don't think that every other game should have adopted it as if that was the new standard. It's okay to lose some health, which puts your life in the hands of the medic. You need to depend on your medic to drop a medic pack to get your health back. So your medic should always be on point, always dropping that bag so that you have a way to get that health back consistently. So just waiting around a corner for 5 seconds and then your health comes back on its own kind of defeats the purpose of having the medic class almost altogether. If they didn't have the paddles, they would be completely unnecessary. And even then, it seems like now, as long as you're in the same squad, anyone can really revive you. They just take a little bit longer because they have to drag you and give you that stim pen. So I think Assault should probably go back to being that medic class, the way it was in 2142. I'm going to reference 2142 a few times. That was one of my favorite iterations of Battlefield. But I think that was a really good breakdown. They had Assault, which was the medic. Resupply was the resupply guy. He's the one with the LMG. And then there was Engineer and Recon with the sniper. So that was a good 4-class breakdown. Number 3, make the classes more important. I think I already touched on this, where your ammo doesn't auto-resupply, so your health shouldn't either. You really shouldn't be auto-regenning your health. So there should be, just like it has been in some of the more classic Battlefields, a medic box is different than a resupply box. They're both required, they're both necessary to be successful on the battlefield. Number 4, I think you can flesh out Recon a bit more. Again, in 2142, there was some cool ideas that they had. So one of those ideas was to give some sort of stealth option. In 2142, you got a gadget that allowed you to basically have Predator invisibility, and that kind of gave the option for Recon to either use that invisibility to get to a good sniping position, or instead of choosing a sniper rifle, they could have some sort of 3-round burst assault rifle or something like that. It's not quite as powerful as the regular assault rifle that the assault class would get, but it was a kind of medium range option that changed the way that Recon worked. So if you had that, as well as keeping the respawn beacon, perhaps your job as Recon could be more so to go invisible, get behind enemy lines, place down the respawn beacon, and then start to allow your team or your squad to start spawning in a more advantageous position. So you're not really out to just get kills. You're actually using some sort of utility, and you're providing some sort of different benefit to your squad. And to balance that out, maybe you can take away, if they have that invisibility, maybe you can take away their main weapon. They can only have some sort of sidearm. Then you're getting closer to something like Solid Snake in Metal Gear. You're getting closer to Sam Fisher. So that kind of like, I just have a silenced pistol, and my main goal is to kind of sneak around and achieve some of these different objectives. Maybe even you're just carrying the C4 with you, and you're not even going for a respawn drop. You're just trying to get to a vehicle that's being really problematic that no one can seem to really get around because it's an open field they're in. And then you can kind of get a better position, throw that C4 on there, and take them down that way. Another thing that might help the recon class more is I think I really liked this little gadget that was in Battlefield Play for Free. I don't know if it's been in any other Battlefield, but it was this little kind of, I'm going to call it the paint gun. It was a gun that shot a little marker. It was almost like a dart. And once you hit a vehicle with it, it was kind of like an auto lock. So any engineers would be able to look across the map, especially if you had like a javelin. You could look across the map and suddenly there'd be this kind of square on your screen that would mean you're automatically locked onto that tank from across the map, that Jeep, that helicopter, whatever, because someone shot it with this little pistol that put a dart in it that tracks where it's going. So, we can, the balancing can be played with for how long that auto lockdown lasts. Maybe after one missile, it's gone, and they have to get painted again, something like that. But having that, maybe again, you're using your invisibility or your ability to kind of sneak around somehow. You get into an advantageous position. You might not have the ability to take down a tank or a helicopter or whatever, but you're giving your engineer the ability to easily help you out in that situation. So you're painting that vehicle, and then your engineer's picking it up from there and starting to throw rockets downrange at it to take it out for you. So kind of more supporting this idea of playing as a team where everyone has a role, and when you work together, you're able to accomplish something good. Number 5 is to make squads more important and identifiable again. So I think we should up the number of people that can be in a squad to 5 or 6. It's fine if the game wants to default to 4 people per squad, but make it allowable to do up to 5 or 6 if you have that many friends and you want to have a squad that size. Also, having a squad of 6 is going to facilitate something I'm going to talk about later on, but also allow for the squads to change their name. I think that used to be something that you could do is people can name it something silly or something cool. We're going to be Shadow Squad, we're going to be Wolf Squad, we're going to be, Flower Squad, or whatever you want to identify as, and then there's a little more control over the identity that you and your buddies have. It can even be your clan name or something like that, so that people know, oh man, here we go, we got Fart Squad on our team. They've been really crushing it lately. I've seen them around, so we kind of know who they are right off the get-go. Also, make the squad leader the only spawn point for the squad again. I think we're leaning right now towards everyone can spawn on everyone. Everyone can revive everyone. The spawn times are so quick. It's everything to facilitate this kind of meat grinder gameplay that is trying to be more like Call of Duty. And it's been said by other people. I think it's a lot more beneficial for EA and for DICE, for the Battlefield team, to lean into more being Battlefield and less into trying to be Call of Duty. Call of Duty is already Call of Duty. Let Battlefield be Battlefield. And one of those things is this feeling of teamwork, this feeling of this large-scale war, this battle that's going on, that's not necessarily just everyone running around, slide canceling, jumping around, shooting, getting kill streaks and things like this, and then dying and then respawning immediately and going right back at it, and having this kind of like ADD friendly gameplay. It's okay if we have to sit out for a few seconds and think about what we did wrong. It's okay if that punishment makes us think of how to approach a situation more in depth before actually running in and just trying to ADS and shoot things as quick as possible. So getting back on track, squad leader is the only spawn point for the squad. I used to have a lot of fun in 2142, referencing that again, but I used to have a lot of fun as the squad leader, knowing that I was the spawn point, that I could actually kind of sit back a little bit and act as that really beneficial spawn point. So I would find a really good position and try to not engage that much unless I could shoot someone and kill them and remain undetected. I wouldn't try to run in and just blaze through and get as many kills as I wanted to or as I could. I tried to be more of a benefit to my squad by sitting back in a bush, sitting back in a corner, and letting them spawn until we've captured the point or until we've achieved that objective. Then I can get up and join my squad in being more reckless and joining the fight. Number 5, I think we should bring... Oh, I think I messed up the number in here. The number 5 was the squads. This will be number 6. Bring back Commander. Whatever happened to the Commander? I really, a lot of people just ignored the Commander, but every once in a while you got a really cool Commander, and I enjoyed playing Commander, especially in Battlefield 2. Being able to do an artillery strike, UAVs, and even having a 3D map where you could kind of zoom in. You could see players running across this big open field or this big piece of desert that no one else was looking at, and you could just mark them. You could just mark them for your team. And that was beneficial. And then suddenly the squad that's maybe holding down a point can now see, oh, hey, there's actually a guy out there. Maybe there's a whole squad out there. Maybe there's a tank and a couple of guys out there that they didn't see coming, but your commander was attentive enough to kind of zoom in and watch these little ants running around and mark them for you and call them out. Trying to boost up the communication between squad leader and commander. I thought that was a really cool feature of especially Battlefield 2, where the commander had a voice channel that he could speak to the squad leaders, and squad leaders had to manage 2 different hotkeys. One was a hotkey to speak to the commander, one was a hotkey to speak to his squad. So he had this direct line of communication to the commander to say, hey, I need some help here, or hey, we're not getting it done, or hey, we're good at doing this thing, utilize us this way, or hey, we're going to push into this, can you give us some support, whatever. And the commander could respond to that and say, yeah, I'm going to drop a supply drop for you guys. You can get health and resupplies off of this big box that drops from the sky. Or, man, I see all your vehicles got blown up. I'm going to drop a Jeep out of the sky for you. Or I'm going to start a UAV in your area. Or, oh, you're going to go attack this next position. You're going to attack point B. You're at point A. Okay, I'm going to drop an artillery strike on point B right now to hopefully dwindle the numbers or make them retreat or make them go into some buildings and take cover while you guys are crossing this big open plain to move into point B. And that way there's not a lot of people that are just sitting out in the open safely being able to watch you and pick you off. So facilitating that kind of teamwork, I think, was really cool. I didn't see it used a whole lot. Maybe that's why it went away. But I think it needs to be maybe worked on a little bit and pushed a little bit. Instead of just getting rid of it because no one's using it, what can we do to change it to make it more incentivized? Can we give additional points to people that use that whole system? There was already a system in place where the commander gives an order. The squad leader can accept or deny it. If they accept it, you get a few more bonus points. And if you accept it and then you do it, then everybody gets bonus points. The commander gets points because he gave a command that was accepted and it was achieved. Hey, go attack this position. They attacked the position. They took over point A. And then everybody else gets bonus points because if I get a kill in that area, if I revive someone in the area, if I resupply someone in the area, I'm doing all these things within the area that the commander gave me an order to do something in. So everything gets these like added bonus points on top of what you're doing, and it just benefits everybody involved. So I think if we call that out again, even if people just see that as like, hey, this is a much better way to grind the battle pass. I just get more points, and I really skate through that battle pass a lot easier, or get levels a lot easier, or level up my guns easier when the commander's at play, because I get all these bonus points if he's on top of his game and giving me orders that I can follow. And I found that a good commander was also someone who could say, if they're not even following my orders, if they're not going to do specifically what I tell them to do, I'm just going to look at what they're essentially already doing and then give them the order to do that already. So it's like, hey, these teams are already going to these points. Why don't I just give them the order to attack that point they're already going to? Then it's a no-brainer for them to just accept it, and now all those bonus points just start rolling in because it was a no-brainer to give them the order to do what they're already doing, and for them to accept to say, yeah, I'm already going to attack that point. Yeah, I accept that order to attack that point. So now everybody involved starts to just stack up all these bonus points. Win-win. I also think we should bring back the buildings that are at the base. So whether it was your aircraft carrier or your HQ or whatever, there were buildings, and I remember this especially in 2142. I remember it less in Battlefield 2, but in 2142 especially, there were buildings at your base that facilitated things. So there was this, the artillery strike, big cannon thing. There was, kind of satellite dish radio tower thing. And there was like these various buildings. And if a demolitions guy or an engineer was able to sneak behind enemy lines without you noticing and get to these buildings and put some C4 on them or shoot them with rockets or whatever, they could actually destroy these buildings. And as a player, you might notice suddenly your minimap goes away. It starts to turn into just like TV snow. It's just static. What the heck happened? Well, it was one of these guys that snuck behind our base and took out one of those buildings that facilitated that. So now the commander or someone else on your team needs to refocus, especially, I think it had to be an engineer with the repair tool. They need to go to your base, first of all, make sure that guy's not there anymore. Kill him if he's still there. But then use the repair tool to bring these buildings back. And then you get your minimap back online. And then the commander can utilize UAVs again. And then the artillery can be used again. All these different things that you might take for granted in normal play suddenly can get ripped away by someone strategically going behind enemy lines and destroying those buildings. I thought that was a really cool alternate way to play the game. It was very strategic. Another one that I has never been done before, but I think might add some value to the commander, is what if there was a money system? What if every time you got a kill, a few dollars got added to your team? Every time you took a point, a few hundred, a few thousand, a few $1,000,000, whatever those numbers look like, get added to your team. No one gets to spend those dollars, but they get added to the bank for the entire faction of that war, and the commander sees that bank account, and the commander gets to use that money to buy vehicles. So maybe it's a different way to spawn in vehicles. Instead of just you get X number of Jeeps, you get this many tanks, you get this many jets, and you get this many helicopters. Instead of doing it that way, maybe the commander can use this pot of money to say, my team doesn't really care about Jeeps. They don't even really care about jets. I have one squad that loves to use helicopters, so I'm going to use some of that money to buy a couple of those. And I have another couple of squads that love to use tanks, so I'm going to spawn a couple of those. So that way, it's like we're not wasting our money on jets and Jeeps. We're saving it, and then we're giving it to the squad members that are asking for it, saying, we're really good at flying helicopters, and this other squad is like, we're really good at driving tanks and having an engineer repair us constantly. So we are strategic in how we use the tank. We lob our shots from a long distance, and we kind of use the cover that we have available to us to avoid taking so many critical shots, so we keep our tanks alive for longer. And then if you're like, okay, this is my tank squad and this is my helicopter squad, maybe the commander has the option to pluck them out of the battlefield and drop them into the vehicles that they've asked for. I purchase them, drop them in, send them on their way, and say, go ahead and kill stuff. And then maybe they die right away. Okay, I can buy more. Don't worry about it. And maybe I can keep those helicopters coming and those tanks coming faster than I can normally because I'm saving money on the jets and the jeeps. Not spending any money in those areas, so I'm using them more to just keep the helicopters and the tanks coming for you. And of course, game to game, it might look different. Maybe you get some jet pilots that are really good. No one cares about helicopters. Maybe you get a bunch of people that are like, we really need the jeeps to get to the points because they're so far apart. We're infantry focused, and we really need to get to those objectives fast, so we need those jeeps. Okay, cool. I can spawn those instead of saving them for the other vehicles. So it becomes this kind of a bit more, another layer of strategy for the commander to communicate with the squad and say, what kind of vehicles do you guys want? What can you utilize best? I'm going to spend the money in that way instead of just allowing the map to say 4 jeeps, 2 tanks, 1 helicopter, 2 jets. That's just the way the map's designed. Instead of just working with that, the commander can maybe finagle things a little bit. And then number 7, which is my last idea here to change or to add. And this is another new thing. I heard some streamers talking about, and everyone got up in arms, and I agree. But especially I think it was FaZe Swag or something was like, I think this game needs kill streaks. What do you guys think? Kill streaks? Say this in chat if you want kill streaks. And everyone was like, dude, this is not Call of Duty. I agree. It's not Call of Duty. But then I got to thinking, first of all, the answer to that is this is Battlefield. You are the kill streak, right? So in Call of Duty, you pull out your laser pointer or your binoculars and you say, attack this position, and the computer takes over, and you just get some generic artillery fire or just bullets just kind of rain down on a certain area, and that's the kill streak. Great. Well, that kind of statement of you are the kill streak is that a real player is actually flying that A-10 or that helicopter or that other jet or whatever, or tank or whatever. Those are real players and real vehicles that you should be communicating with your team to say, I need this here. And you're not just rewarded with a kill streak that one person can just press a button and suddenly this thing happens. You got to communicate with your team and then they make it happen. But I thought, what if we were able to blend those two worlds and kind of get the best of both of it? So instead of rewarding someone for getting, so it wouldn't be called a kill streak anymore. I would say maybe something more like a bonus event. Because it's not based on, I got 10 kills in a row, 15 kills in a row, so I just get this reward. It would be more like, maybe on the map, there is a airport runway objective that's kind of in the middle of the map. So both teams are trying to fight for dominance over this point because it's a very important point. Maybe if you take control of that point, your commander gets access to this bonus event. And the bonus event maybe looks like some of the story stuff that happened. One of the missions in Battlefield 3, I think it was 3, where one of the early on missions was you were a fighter pilot and you started off by, putting on your helmet, getting in the cockpit, and you could see the condensation on the glass on the cockpit and everything. It looked amazing. But you take off and you're flying with a few other jets, and you're kind of this whole squadron of jets that's kind of going towards a position. What if we tried to recreate some of those story moments that are iconic in the Battlefield series at this point now in the actual multiplayer game? So going back to the match that we're theoretically in the middle of let's say my team takes control of the capture point that has this airport runway, and as soon as I do that, then the commander gets another button on his screen where he can click on it, and it's like I can call in this like air support event, and I can choose someone on my team. And this is where I'm going to say, if you had a squad size of 6, you could say, hey, we're all pilots. They could communicate that beforehand, or maybe there's some sort of flag that they can identify as pilots to easily let the commander know who's good with a jet or who's not. And maybe you could talk it out in the pregame lobby, whatever. But maybe the commander can select this squad and say, I'm going to pull this whole squad of 6. You're going to be the people who are driving this in-game bonus event. So all 6 get pulled out of wherever they're at, and then 2 per jet. You got 3 jets, you got a pilot and a gunner in every jet, and you got 3 jets that are just flying in, and it's like, wouldn't it be cool if suddenly you're way off the coast of one side of the map, and you're flying in, and you hear some dialogue, you're doing your checks, gun's good, your bombs are ready, your payload's ready to be delivered, and everyone's kind of looking to the side. We're in position, and you're maybe it's a good like 15 to 20 seconds out, and you're flying over just the sea as you approach the actual map. And as you're doing that, the commander's like, hey, I need another squad to paint an objective. They get out their laser pointer. Maybe Recon has a laser pointer attached to his sniper rifle so he can do it from a long distance. They paint a target and they say, hey, this is a position we're trying to take, but it's pretty hard. There's a lot of people that are in those buildings or in those trenches or whatever. They paint a position, and then the jets are like, okay, target confirmed. That's what we're going to go for. And so, you have a few seconds to decide, hey, jets 1 and 2 are going to run defense. There's a couple of other enemy jets or helicopters in the air. We're going to try and get ahead of you and take those down, or like get their attention. I want the main jet in the back to get the payload and drop that payload as a big bomb, or even napalm. That's, just this big wall of fire that drops. If he's able to get to where the painted objective is, drop his payload, success. The team that's on the ground is like, wow, that looks so freaking cool. I was part of doing this. The commander's like, I facilitated the whole thing. The people driving the jets are like, we accomplished what we were trying to do. Even if the team on the ground doesn't even take the objective after that, everyone gets this kind of sense of accomplishment that all these parties kind of came together to make this thing happen. And hopefully in the end, there is a bunch of kills that you got succeeding in the objective of calling in this bonus event to clear out the enemy from this objective. So I think that would be really cool, and you could take that idea and do a couple of different things with it. So there was another mission in Battlefield 3 that was pretty iconic. That was the same thing except it was a bunch of tanks. Okay, exact same scenario, but you got like 3 different tanks, and they all are rolling in from pretty far off in the map, and they approach. They have a position. Someone paints a target. They go and they start trying to just lob all their shots into that target and hopefully clear it out. Or even they just roll in and just assert dominance and try and take the heat off of the ground troops. Maybe they roll in and are a defensive thing for the troops. They just get in between the enemy and the ground troops and allow them to advance a little bit. However they should be used. So you can kind of take that idea with multiple different things. You could even have a point that gets taken that maybe has a training facility on it, and it's like, okay, now instead of, it's not even a vehicle that you get, or maybe it's one vehicle that's like an APC that's in the water, but essentially it's like, we're going to have a squad that I'm going to pull out of where they are, and they're going to spawn in as Navy SEALs. Maybe they get special gadgets, special uniforms, some sort of bonus abilities that they get as those Navy SEALs, and they kind of come in from a different position and have a different way of attacking or something like that. Just an idea that can be utilized in different ways to try and, again, recreate some of those story events that came along with Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. Just overall, I love Battlefield, and I would just like to see DICE move back into the space of being Battlefield and not being Call of Duty. It doesn't have to be this super quick meat grinder, ADD type gameplay. It can be a little bit slowed down. It can be more strategic. We can make each class more important and not just closer to every class being able to do everything. It's okay, and I've seen some people complain, oh, if I'm this class, I turn around and I see a tank, there's literally nothing I can do about that tank. That's okay. That is okay. That's not your job. Your job, maybe as Assault, is to help, if we were playing 2142, you'd have the medic bag, so your job is to help your squad be ground troops, but also to shoot other ground troops. You're infantry focused. You're not built to deal with vehicles. So you see a tank, you see a jet, you see a helicopter, run and communicate with your engineers. That's what they're for. Because at the very same time, your engineers will look at someone with an LMG, someone with an AR, someone with a shotgun, and say, I'm not really good at dealing with that. I mean, if they're really good with their SMG, maybe they can hold their own for a little bit. But overall, they're more built and equipped to deal with those vehicles that you just weren't able to do anything about. But that's the teamwork aspect of it. That's where you are not alone in trying to fight this battle. You and your squad should be a well-rounded, like almost a Voltron of an individual. If you and your squad all have a different job, you can come together to be able to handle any situation together. And it shouldn't be any one person that's able to just run amok on the battlefield and turn the tides. So, alright, I think I've gone long enough. Thanks for listening. If you did watch this video, I don't expect that many people will, but I just figured I'd regret it if I didn't just get those out and put it somewhere. So, alright, thanks again. Bye.